News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Hello there and a very good morning. Welcome to Newsline. My name is Sonali Baduge. Joining us in our studios is a very special guest. He is Mr. Austin Fernando. Good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Fernando.
Good morning to you.
Thank you and thank you for joining us on Newsline, and we warmly welcome you to the Maharaja organization. Mr. Fernando, you are a senior civil servant. You were just recently the governor of the Eastern Province, and now you are the man closest to the country's president. What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge?
First of all, may I correct Sonali? I am the most senior executive in the Presidential Secretariat, and not the closest to the president, because for a president there are so many people who are close to him. There are people who are politicians, there are people who are advisors, there are people who are experts who are working with him. So therefore, you can call me the chief executive of the Presidential Secretariat.
What is going to be your biggest challenge in this new role that you have now taken on?
I think after 2.5 years of this government, His Excellency has selected me as the secretary to his secretariat. There are certain roles that have to be played by the secretariat. It is not only administrative, it is sometimes political, sometimes economic, sometimes development, sometimes getting involved in diplomatic issues. So the biggest challenge I think I would face is that to coordinate all these activities is a problem which any secretary would face. At the moment there are so many challenges faced by the government. You know about it very well. Your media as well as other sources come out with economic issues, political issues, constitutional issues. Like that, there are so many issues that have been raised in society, in public domain. So to get involved in that is a challenge which anyone would face, not only a secretary.
Mr. Fernando, we've seen several years of this national unity government between the SLFP and the United National Party. However, an issue that is being raised is that there seems to be no consensus at several policy levels. So, as someone with decades of experience in administration, how do you think we as a country can move forward in a progressive manner?
I will not comment on the unity government's consensus building, where they have come into an agreement somewhere in August 2 years back, and they have to be carrying on with that for 2 years. There was a time when I think it was Honorable Dhumindra Sanayaka who said, we have agreed to go for 5 years. So if that is the true status, then there can't be anything to talk about building consensus, because it would have been built up when he said that. But of course, as you very rightly say, there appears to be certain issues that are being discussed and which create feeling of what you have. But the government goes on decisions taken every week in the cabinet of ministers, and I think there is I have not seen any deviation from each other on such decisions taken, because that's a consensus building at a height. And even in the constitution, if you look at it, the cabinet is said to be having collective responsibility. So if it is collective responsibility, it has to be collective responsibility. And if it is collective responsibility, then at least consensus, if not the total agreement.
In 2001, from 2000 to 2003, you served as the Secretary to the Ministry of Defense. You also managed the security aspects of the ceasefire agreement, monitored human rights issues, and really sat at peace talks with the LTT as well. Now, right now, Sri Lanka is in a post-conflict stage, moving towards a comprehensive process of national unity and reconciliation. Do you think that the right decisions are being made on this front? Or do you think that there is only a top-down approach and that we are not involving the real stakeholders of this issue?
That's a very serious question, I should say. Because when I served as a Secretary of Defense, it was at a time where we were fighting, and then there was a break of nearly 2 years where we were having peace. Then once again there was a period of war, once again from conflict from 2006 onwards until 2009. And then thereafter, now 2009 up to 2017, there's once again a period where there's no conflict. So things that had happened 15 years back where I was Secretary of Defense cannot be compared with what had happened later, because there was a peace period of 2 years, roughly 3 years. Then we have once again a war period, and then once again a peace period. So things cannot go on like that. And the other thing is that the one challenge I faced was I was managing the operation of the CFA in a big way, I should say. There are the politicians, once again, the Honorable Prime Minister and others. They were managing on one side. I was managing the conflict side, where I had to get people who have been trained to fight, not to fight. I think later at one stage when the government has changed, when I have given up this one, the secretaries to the President or Secretary of the Defense Ministry, they had to make use of people who have been taught and trained to fight. So that's a challenge one would have, and therefore reconciliation measures during my time and during the time of later cannot be similar. And there had been so many allegations made. I don't say they are right or wrong, maybe right, or maybe halfway, half-baked. There are certain allegations made, and those allegations become of reconciliation. The people have to reconcile on the basis of what had happened, how the people have got affected, how the economy has got affected, how the ethnicities have got affected, how the country as a whole had got affected. So therefore, these efforts that are made for reconciliation also change from my time to the after that up to the present day, because we were trying to negotiate with the LTT, as we rightly said. We went to peace talks, we went and met them, we had discussions with them, but the only thing is, finally I think we failed in bringing reconciliation or peace even for that matter. But then after 2009 May, the situation is different. The conflict is over, there are the victors and the vanquished. So therefore, the thinking of the victors and thinking of the vanquished cannot be similar. So therefore, their demands, their aspirations, what they want to have, also cannot be similar. So therefore, there can be difficulties faced in reconciliation, and it cannot be compared with any other era of attempts to reconcile.
So, Mr. Fernando, how do you think we are faring in this post-conflict scenario with regard to the national unity and reconciliation measures that are being taken at present by the government?
I think the present government had to be facing this domestically. They had to face it internationally. So therefore, there are pressures that are being brought on the government. For example, for instance, the aspiration I'll take a good example. The aspiration of the government is to be the aspiration of the people in the north and east regarding, we say, land is one important thing.
Sure. They
want all the lands to be released. They want all the military to be sent out. I don't think everybody wants it, but at least politically we hear this being stated by some politicians, and then by some international people, like the international diaspora people. So that is one thing which you hear from them. On the other hand, there are reservations on the part of the government. So therefore, whatever you have to do for reconciliation have to be planned well, and this planning process also have various other nuances which are coming in. For example, political issues also come in. So therefore, these pressures and the aspirations sometimes do not match. So therefore, one has to be very cautious in handling this situation.
Mr. Fernando, this government of good governance was brought in on the 8th of January 2015 on the basis of ensuring a better protection of rights, not just of one or two groups of people, but of the entire Sri Lankan population. However, over the recent past, we have seen several incidents of inciting of racial violence and racial hatred. How do you view this, and how do you think Sri Lanka really needs to, as a government and as a whole, sort of curb these tendencies and bring the perpetrators to book?
Yeah, I think some of the things that have happened during the conflict period for 30 years, some are forgotten, even by the people who were the victims of it. But some are being raised as a matter of demand. At the same time, there may be forces, I say there may be forces, who would like to destabilize certain areas and communities by that. Now, as governor, I can give you two latest incidents which I faced. There was a case of some community, some people from some community encroaching on some of the lands that belonged to the archaeological department, which was next to another religious group in Trincomalee area. Now, people were trying to create problems by way of inciting people to do various things. But then, as governor, when I came across that, I got down these particular two groups, their leaders, their religious leaders, the politicians of both sides, and sat with them and explained to them, and it came all right. Then they just we stopped the conflict situation. Then there was another case where there was a case of abusing 3 young girls, and this case was brought up. Now, it is very difficult for people to be checking on a thing like that and investigating and coming into terms with what is right, what is the correct situation, who are the people who are the perpetrators and like that. It's very difficult, because when you have small children, the amount of memory they have, the amount of capacity to identify people, those are very difficult things. Then it becomes, we have to go on with other technical measures to ensure that we get them. Now, when we try to do it, sometimes we fail, because we have taken into custody the wrong man, whose DNA is tested and the DNA doesn't match. Now, the latest person who has been caught, the DNA testing, we have sent it for DNA testing, we have not received it. Probably next week we may get the DNA. But if we fail in getting the DNA testing to match with the person, then there will be once again a case of going into details. So therefore, sometimes it is not easy. Now, this particular case happened about 2 months or so back. Until now, there is no perpetrator. But there were so many incidents of not violence, but some sort of, shall I say, tension in that area. The girls who were from one community, their people started burning tires and road blocking and things like that. Then there was once again the same community people little distance away did that. Then the other community also started doing the same thing in that area. The set with the alleged perpetrator, that community. Then you won't believe when this happened in Trincomalee. Even in Battikalot you had things. Then in Akkarepattu you had the same community uprising against this. So then when it happens, one has to consider that it is not an isolated event, isolated instigation. It could be even planned instigation. So therefore, when we handle these things, sometimes people expect immediate results, which is difficult for technical reasons, for legal reasons. Sometimes it is difficult, but sometimes we catch people immediately. So therefore, they base these things on ethnicity, they base these things on religion, very, very sensitive issues. Later, they based it on language long years back, of course, and it's still continuing in certain areas. So some of these things have to be addressed by a government, by the society, by the judiciary, by the administrators, taking each case as an individual case and then putting everything as a total heap of things that are there.
You mentioned an incident where you intervened.
Yeah.
But if we take the country as a whole, large numbers of incidents may happen across the country. So then we can't have individuals or groups intervening. We need a proper system. And for that we do have a proper system. We have law enforcement agencies. We have a properly functioning, robust judicial system, a legal system. So where then are we going wrong?
Many commentators have been giving many reasons for this. Some say it is lack of training. Some say it is lack of commitment. Some say it is politicization. Some say it is administrative weakness of monitoring and taking action against people who are bad, shall we say. Some people even say it is they complain against the judiciary also sometimes. So these and some people say it's total. A lot of people put it on politicization. Right. Some people say it is due to systems management, wrong systems management. So that also, once again, in one case it may be system. In one case maybe that legal issues are the reason. Some case maybe technical difficulties. So one cannot put everything in one basket and say, sure, okay, this is for this reason. When you take the basket, when you take pieces from the basket, it may be different reasons.
Okay. So how does Sri Lanka then go from being in a position where there are these issues being faced to a country that really takes care of all of its people?
I think if you take the conflict situation as the backdrop of the thing, now we had the UNHRC resolution on 1st of October 2015. Now what happened is, some people, now there are certain shall I say, negotiated and accepted, they call it in that resolution of UNHRC resolution. There are certain things that they say. For example, they say for reconciliation we should have devolution to be given more prominence and constitutional changes. Then they say, let us go in for truth seeking, let us go for reparation, let us go for judicial mechanism brought up. So people give various resolutions. And then the one big difficulty we have is, we as a country, especially the politicians who speak out these things, they don't have a consensual agreement on what should happen for the for the benefit of the country, to the people who suffered. People who suffered not only one community, all the communities got affected, all the religious groups got affected. So whether we can create a consensual decision-making process where we agree on basics and even then develop the basics into much more wider areas of action, that I see is development is very slow. So therefore, unless we go fast and do it, sometime maybe that we have lost time in coming to reconciliation or to bring peace, real peace into this country.
But after the end of the ethnic conflict in 2009 May, we saw presidential commissions being appointed. We saw the LLRC Commission, we saw the Presidential Commission to investigate into incidents of missing persons, and now with this government we saw the OMP, the Office on Missing Persons. Then we saw several measures being taken, the ONUR office being set up. There's another office under the Prime Minister. However, there seems to be no streamlining of the exact process in which we need to progress towards real national unity.
Yeah, I think this complaint is made once again by many people in many quarters. Especially from the diaspora, this complaint is made. I think in certain instances one can say that the complaints are reasonable, but not always. But we'll take, once again I would like to go to the operational level where I have been involved. Now, we take the case of return of, one thing which had been discussed is return of military areas to the people, to return them to their own lands. Now, this is done in some ways, but in certain places it has not happened. And you can't expect that to happen overnight either. But when you say 2009 to 2015, there was hardly, not that nothing was happening, it was a slow movement towards that time. I'll take my personal experience in Sampur. As a governor, I am the man who started doing that. Of course, I got the best of support from the politicians, from the administration, from international agencies in certain countries. They helped us, and we brought it under control. I remember first visiting to Sampur refugees camps, IDP camps, and for the first time seeing them. Then within 4 or 5 months, we got part of the land released from the military, and then we took them in. But then at that time, ONUR was not functioning. Yeah. SCRM under Prime Minister was not functioning. So it is an individual, shall I say, pressure brought on a problem to settle it. But of course, I agree with you that there are several organizations, and they are doing something also. But there could be better results. There could be better results if we do a much more organized thing. Now you are mentioning about OMP. Yes, OMP is there, and right now we have been working on even on the TRC. Of course, there is no law that have been created by us, not produced, but there are various ways of doing it. Now I know, for example, we were working on certain international experiences and taking the Manuri Muttetugama committee report, task force report, then getting the ONUR people also getting involved. We prepared something. But at the same time, there are some people who say, let's have it on the Colombian model or some other model. So if every political authority in this country, if all of them could think that this is our problem, it's a 30-year problem, it's the consequences of the 30-year problem. Let us look at this problem very, let us look at it unitedly. Then it could have been done better. But then, you know, this country doesn't have that type of political discipline, shall I say, with all due respect to all the politicians.
Moving away from the reconciliation process of which we spoke at length, Mr. Fernando, you also served in the Sri Lanka Administrative Service, as well as a graduate teacher.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Don't you think that Sri Lanka's youth is not being sufficiently utilized in ensuring that Sri Lanka's productivity and efficiency is kept at a maximum? I mean, even graduates, we see them fleeing the country after, whether it be doctors or engineers or computer engineers.
Yeah, brain drain is a normal phenomenon in developing countries. Although we are called a middle income developed country, we have certain low development processes, low development actions taking place. But this graduates problem, one thing was some people have left this country in 1980s for different reasons. Some people have left for different reasons. But right now the real pressure is locally, not about people fleeing away. We have the problem of graduates who are not employed here and they are going on street demonstrations, absolutely. The reason, if you look at it, is that we have about 30,000 graduates in this country. And many science graduates, law graduates, or English, mathematics, and that type of category of graduates, they are not in the group of people who are protesting. They are getting jobs somewhere. They at least improve themselves, mathematics and science. Even the arts graduates, arts students, they climb the ladder of employment by getting themselves qualified masters and even IT and things like that. But there are a lot of graduates who are unemployed, who are creating problems in this country, and they are mostly arts graduates. So the problem is not in the graduates who are there. The problem is we should look at the problem as a problem that will continue for some time if we go on like this. If we have, we say, 20,000 arts graduates now, if we are not going to correct the system of education, well, what we will have is, there may be about 25,000 or 30,000 graduates in another 2 years' time.
Can we be satisfied with our existing education system? Is it holistic enough? Is it inclusive enough? Because just a handful going to university, the rest are just left in the country to become either three-wheel drivers or something like that.
Becoming three-wheel drivers is, I think, a fad, you see. They just state, now at least the government has put a stop to that by saying that people should be 35 years or so in age to start driving. So now what I say is, there are certain administrative systems that are there. We have the skills development, vocational development, ministry.
Yes, but are they effective enough?
That's something which people find inadequate, I should say. I don't want to say ineffective because that's a very bad term for dealing with politicians. I think people complain of inadequacy of that. And the other thing is the job market also should be there because it's a demand and supply problem. If you have IT graduates who cannot be employed, why should you have these people? If you don't want, we say lathe operators, if you don't want, I'm talking about, not about graduates, lathe operators. We say lathe operators or motor mechanics. If there's no demand for lathe operators or for motor mechanics, then people getting involved in getting themselves trained is not there. So therefore, there should be a manpower plan that should be made. And say, and a projection for another 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is, then it's okay. Then if you do that, you will not support the arts graduates coming like this, because no use at the moment, unless they get into the SLAs or income tax service or get into the clerical service or whatever, or in the private sector.
Mr. Fernando, my final question to you. As the newly appointed Secretary to His Excellency the President of Sri Lanka, you will be handling issues of national interest which are contentious, which won't really have easy solutions. How are you going to face this challenge?
These the questions and problems that may come across in my day-to-day work will be of different nature, and I may have to use the government. We have authorities in every government. For instance, I don't want to mention the name of the particular issue. Today I was dealing with 3 secretaries from the airport. I was there, and I was dealing with 3 secretaries and speaking to ministers and trying to settle that problem. So there I have to use the secretaries of ministries. Then that is for operational reasons. I look at all the cabinet papers that are given to ministers. Not only me, we have got 2 or 3 guys who are working on that. So we have to look at it in a very broad and formal manner, because without thinking that okay, this will give a bigger image for him, image building maybe the purpose, but if we don't want to have it, no. And some of the comments we make, observations we make, they are very, very important. The cabinet takes them into consideration when we make observations. Of course, we make it through the president. Then we have to deal with a lot of, we say, foreign people. They deal with me. Although I have been in office only for 3 days, I have already seen three diplomats. So that's the way how we have to do it. You have to discuss with them, you have to negotiate with them. You have to understand give and take. You have to understand culture, tradition and systems in the country. So you have to make use of all those to deal with it. It's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. Because as I told at the beginning, we have economic issues, we have political issues, so it's not an easy task. Because you have to, in a unity government, it's very important, because although the two governments are there in the unity government, they have their own identities also. So therefore you have to be considerate of it. And so as the Secretary to the President, I have to look after the interests of the President. At the same time, I must be mindful of the fact that we have to be giving and taking, compromising, that type of situation. So it's a tough assignment.
We wish you all the best in ensuring that the future of Sri Lanka is secure. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Fernando.
News First Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.